No chains can bind the will of a united people. These words echo in my bones every morning as I wake. I am Ibrahim Traoré, and this is the story of my life, a journey from a quiet village to the roar of revolution.
What if I told you, Burkina Faso just rose faster than any nation in modern African history? In less than 3 years, a wave of construction has surged across the landlocked heart of West Africa. From cracked dirt roads to nuclear power stations, from remote villages to the bustling core of Ouagadougou, Africa builds, brick by brick, dream by dream. Behind this surge stands Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young president who took power at the end of 2022 with a vision that reaches beyond chaos. No hollow promises, just action. 25 projects, launched by Ibrahim Traoré himself, have not only reshaped the destiny of Burkina Faso, they've stunned the world. On the 2nd of October 2024, a plane painted in the national colors of Burkina Faso took off from Ouagadougou International. But it wasn't just a flight, it was a declaration. We are back. After years of paralysis due to crisis, the national airline Akina was officially reborn. There was no media fanfare, no loud campaigns, just one brand new 190-seater purchased for $19 million, secured through quiet, persistent diplomacy between Burkina Faso and China. The maiden journey took passengers from Ouagadougou to Haka, then connected to Bamako. But what mattered more was belief. This nation could now reconnect with the world on its own terms. President Traoré didn't just revive an airline, he opened the skies for an entire people, and Air Burkina became the first wing of a new era. A cashew processing plant, Burkina's new weapon of self-reliance. In the parched lands of southern Burkina Faso, beneath the steady rhythm of machines, a modern cashew factory has officially gone into operation. But what's processed here is not just nuts, it's pride. Under President Traoré, this project is not simply a production site. It is designed to create over 20,000 direct jobs and up to 50,000 indirect ones, lifting tens of thousands of families out of poverty. Burkina is among the top cashew-growing regions in West Africa, but until now, raw cashews were always shipped abroad, to be processed by someone else. Not anymore. Traoré didn't just build a factory, he built an ecosystem, turning raw materials into finished products, turning farmers into stakeholders, and turning a single nut into a symbol of economic sovereignty, a postal bank for the forgotten. On the 7th of October 2024, the Postal Bank of Burkina Faso, known as BPPF, was officially launched in Ouagadougou. This is not just a bank, it is a doorway to opportunity for millions who were once left behind. The idea had existed since 1988, but it was only under President TRPPP that it took form, with an initial capital of $25 million. Unlike traditional banks, PPP serves women, youth, and farmers, offering savings, microcredit, and simple, accessible financial services. It is not a place to dream of riches, but a place to begin something real. Traoré calls it the Bank of Empowerment. And for millions of Burkina Faso's citizens, it's a quiet revolution, reviving the weaving and textile industry in Burkina Faso. Wearing traditional clothing is no longer just about aesthetics. It is a political act, a declaration of pride. Under President Traoré, the entire textile and garment industry was reawakened through bold, unapologetic actions. New textile factories were built, school uniforms were made using food and fani, a locally crafted fabric rich in cultural identity. Not only that, but all police and military uniforms are now produced domestically, ending the country's reliance on imports. And in a historic, symbolic move, lawyers in courtrooms no longer wear European-style wigs. Instead, they argue in African traditional attire. The turning point came with a ban on second-hand clothing imports, breaking a decades-old habit of wearing the West's cast-offs. For Traoré, the era of dressing like others is over. This is the time to weave, to wear, and to define our own worth. Expanding Popo Dioulasso Airport, West Africa's new gateway. In the west of Burkina Faso, the Bobo Dioulasso International Airport once stood as a forgotten structure, small, outdated, and nearly abandoned. But now, it is becoming one of the region's most strategic air corridors. President TR announced a major investment, 80 billion CFA francs, to fully modernize the entire airport. This isn't just a renovation, it's a rebirth. From a brand new terminal capable of handling 1.5 million passengers per year, to revamped runways, aircraft zones, and a new network of surrounding roads. The goal? Not just to serve locals, but to transform Bobo into a regional transit hub, a new gateway for tourism, trade, and investment. While many countries build airports just to beautify government reports, here, every brick carries strategy. A strategy to punch Burkina Faso onto the aviation map of the continent, with bare hands and boundless will. Empowering agriculture in Burkina Faso. Agriculture used to be the job of those who had no choice. Now, it is becoming the profession of those who've been empowered. In month 10 of 2024, the government launched a massive distribution campaign. More than 400 tractors, hundreds of motorcycles, pumps, and tens of thousands of tons of fertilizer, seeds, and crop protection products, all handed directly to farmers and cooperatives. Which part moved you most? Comment below and let us know your honest reaction. But it wasn't just about tools. TR launched a historic training program. $200 million were invested to train 20,000 young people, from smart farming techniques to full farm management. They didn't just study, they were granted land to begin real careers. At the same time, projects like floating smart farming barges and aquaculture feed systems are redefining what it means to be a farmer. Traore gave them more than equipment. He gave them a reason to stay, to sow, to build a future from the soil. Ouagadougou Donin Airport, runway for a new beginning. The capital, Ouagadougou, once relied on a cramped, outdated airport located in the very heart of the city, overloaded and increasingly unsafe. But now, a new airport is rising in the northeast, around 35 kilometers from the city center. Ouagadougou Donin International Airport. This is no ordinary project. It is a symbolic milestone in Burkina Faso's leap forward in aviation infrastructure, with a 5-kilometer runway, expandable to 4, and terminals able to serve up to 1 million passengers per year. This airport is being built to the highest modern standards. But more importantly, the entire project uses low-carbon concrete and integrates a 25-megawatt solar power plant with battery storage. A major step forward in sustainability. It's not just a place where planes take off, it's where Burkina Faso reveals a green, long-term, independent vision. Traore didn't want just a new airport. He wanted a new gateway, a new posture, for a people ready to face the world with lifted heads. The birth of AES, a sharp turn away from the old order. In January 2024, the three poorest but most defiant nations of West Africa, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, announced their withdrawal from ECOWAS, the region's economic bloc backed by the West. Soon after, they formed a new alliance, the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. This wasn't a symbolic treaty. It was a true departure from old institutions, from borrowed development models, and from what President Traore calls disguised interventionism. AES is not just a defense pact, it is a united front for economic policy, monetary sovereignty, and regional cooperation on their own terms. They are now preparing their own bank, a shared stability fund, a biometric passport system, no more ECOWAS logos in sight, and they are aiming for an independent Sahel economy, resilient against foreign influence. Traore and the young leaders of the alliance don't speak in polished diplomatic language. They speak through action, and AES is action. A bold decision to walk away in order to stand on their own feet. 1,000 social homes, shelter for those once displaced by war and hunger. Conflict and poverty had forced tens of thousands of Burkina Faso's people to abandon their homelands. They didn't just lose land, they lost their homes, and with them, the feeling of belonging. President Traore understood, no reconstruction can last if people live in temporary shelters, so a rapid housing plan was launched. 1,000 social housing units were built across regions like Note Blue, and Bassan, with a budget of more than 5 billion CFA francs. These were not makeshift rows of tin shacks. They were promises, built with bricks, cement, and roofing steel. A promise, you have a place in this country. At the same time, urban upgrades began. Road expansions, public spaces, infrastructure improvements. So these settlements would be more than roofs. They would be places where people choose to stay, to rebuild their lives. 50,000 kilometers of asphalt when the people build their own highways. From 1960, the year of independence, until 2022, Burkina Faso had managed to build just over 3,600 kilometers of paved roads. 6 decades, and for millions, roads remained a distant luxury. But then, Traore set a target that seemed almost mad: 50,000 kilometers of new asphalt roads before 202X. And the most surprising part, no foreign contractors, no dependence on international experts. The Burkina people would do it themselves, from skill to machinery. The government purchased 900 pieces of construction equipment, launched training for engineers and operators, and mobilized young people across the nation, as if it were a national movement. Every road paved didn't just help cars move, it connected schools, health centers, markets, and futures. In a land once called broken and cut off, Traore is using asphalt to reconnect not only places, but trust. Each meter of road laid is a step forward for a nation designing its own destiny. The Bobo Dioulasso dry port, an exit to the sea for a landlocked nation. Burkina Faso has no coastline, and for decades that meant chronic disadvantage. Goods moved slowly, ports belonged to other countries, logistics costs were sky high. But now, in Bobo Dioulasso, the country's second largest city, a modern dry port is rising. Its price tag, $253 million. Strategically located near the borders of Ivo, Mali, Senegal, and Nitro, the port is designed as an integrated logistics hub, with warehouses, clearance zones, and specialized terminals. All of it aimed at shortening delivery times and reducing transport costs for local businesses. But more importantly, it's a mindset. Instead of always trailing behind, Burkina Faso is now building regional trade infrastructure, ready to compete. In a landlocked nation, Traore found the ocean by creating a port deep in the heart of the land. Free education, the beginning of a generation no longer afraid of the future. In a country where millions of children grew up without ever holding a brand new book, Traore chose to begin from the roots, education. And he didn't begin with speeches, he began with action. In June 2024, a 5-year national education plan was unveiled. At its core, completely free education from primary to university, removing financial barriers for hundreds of thousands of students. But free wasn't enough. More than 250 schools in conflict zones were reopened. 44 modern secondary schools, 39 university lecture halls, and 10 vocational training centers are now rising across the country. The new curriculum goes beyond textbooks. It integrates technical training, practical skills, and civic awareness. Traore understands, a nation can only stand on its own when its youth know who they are and have the tools to change their lives. He didn't just open classrooms, he opened the future for a generation brave enough to dream. Buying the Tama oil port, when a landlocked nation takes hold of volume and velocity. For Burkina Faso, a country with no sea access, every liter of fuel used to be a long journey, across borders, through middlemen, and into the jaws of price crises. But everything began to change when the government purchased the multi-purpose oil port TMA in Ghana for $70 million. No longer waiting for neighboring countries' generosity, Burkina Faso now owns a strategic coastal facility where imported fuel is stored and distributed nationwide. Do you agree with Traore's bold strategy? Comment below and share your thoughts. Alongside this, a new hydrocarbon storage center was built in the west of the country with a capacity of 104,000 cubic meters. It increases national reserves, enhances distribution, and ensures stable supply. In just a few years, Burkina Faso has gone from near total dependency to a fuel supply chain of its own, faster, cheaper, and more sovereign. For Traore, energy independence is no longer a slogan. It is a non-negotiable pillar of national freedom, a nuclear power plant, a daring dream in the heart of Africa. In a country where only about 20% of the population has access to electricity, nuclear energy once seemed like a fantasy, a topic confined to textbooks. But President Traore refused to think small. In July 2023, during an official meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Burkina Faso signed a $4 billion deal with the Rosatom Corporation to build the country's first nuclear power plant. The goal is clear. By 2030, provide electricity to 90% of urban areas and 50% of rural zones. Eliminate dependence on outdated biofuels entirely. But this is more than a power plant. The cooperation with Russia includes technology transfer, workforce training, and public education on atomic energy for peaceful use. Burkina Faso is doing what even many developed countries hesitate to do, using intelligence and international cooperation to rise, not just to escape poverty, but to lead. The Thomas Sankara Memorial, reviving the spirit of a revolution. In 1987, Thomas Sankara, the young revolutionary president, fell in Ogado. For years, the place where he died remained an empty space. But now, on that very soil, a monumental memorial is taking shape. President Traoré launched this project not just as a cultural landmark, but as a historic promise. The Sara Memorial, designed by renowned architect Francis Kay, spans nearly 10,000 square meters. With its centerpiece, an 87-meter tower, symbolizing the 5 heroes who fell. Sankara once dreamed of an Africa that was self-reliant, united, and free. Today, Traoré is turning that dream into stone, steel, and living belief. A geriatric hospital, because a nation must not forget its elders. While the world speaks only of youth and growth, President Traoré chose a different path, by building a hospital for the elderly. In Bobo Dioulasso, Burkina Faso's first modern geriatric hospital is now underway, dedicated to those who carried the country on their shoulders for decades. The government also allocated 1.7 billion CFA francs for free health checkups, medication support, and social care programs, benefiting over 95,000 retired citizens and their dependents, especially those within the national welfare system. In a place that once saw aging as a burden, the elderly are now cared for with respect and gratitude. For Traoré, you cannot build the future by forgetting those who built today. The Xianglongo cement plant, a foundation for a self-built Burkina Faso. In May 2025, the Xiangshino plant was inaugurated in Plateau Central, with a production capacity of 10,000 tons per day, sufficient to supply infrastructure projects across the nation. This is not a foreign-imposed initiative. It is a strategic joint venture between the government and Chinese investors, focused on sustainable production, renewable energy use, modern emission control, and recycling of old cement sacks. The plant generates thousands of jobs, but more importantly, it sends a message. Burkina Faso no longer depends on imported cement. To Traoré, this is not just building material. It is the bedrock for a nation rebuilding with its own labor, its own resources, and its own pride. The Italo-electric car, when technology wears the Burkina Faso flag. Once dismissed as a technological wasteland, Burkina Faso has now produced its very first electric vehicle, Italo, designed and manufactured entirely by its own citizens. The first 2 models, Native and SIL, were unveiled from the factory in Ouaga 2000, the capital, Ouagadougou. These are not vehicles assembled from imported parts. They are the creation of local engineers, mechanics, and designers. Each car can run up to 330 kilometers after just 30 minutes of charging. Equipped with GPS, Bluetooth, and even solar charging, they are designed for both urban roads and rural paths. Italo is more than transport. It is a quiet declaration that this nation is rising, not just to export raw materials, but to manufacture the future with its own mind, its own hands. Fasoreal, the railway that stitches a divided dream back together. Burkina Faso had no railway network linking its 45 provinces. Transport depended entirely on costly, slow, and unreliable trucks. President Traoré vowed to change that. Fasoreal was born, a nationwide rail system with central stations, logistics hubs, and dedicated lines for agricultural goods, minerals, and passengers. Its mission? Slash transport costs, stimulate domestic trade, and awaken the forgotten corners of the land. Fasoreal is not just a railway, it is a new artery, a steel pulse connecting people, regions, and opportunity. It lays the foundation for a unified, modern, and resilient INAFO. Clean water and sanitation, a flow of dignity and health. In many rural parts of BKFO, clean water was once a distant luxury. Children walked for miles to fetch water from rivers. Toilets in countless villages were nothing more than crude pits. But now, the country is undergoing a silent yet profound revolution. Universal access to clean water and basic sanitation. With $48 million in support from the African Development Bank, the government launched a nationwide initiative, installing 60 mobile water supply systems, drilling 110 large-capacity storage tanks, and building more than 13,500 household toilets. The project now brings clean water and dignified sanitation to over 500,000 people. It doesn't just improve hygiene and reduce disease, it restores dignity to communities once forgotten. Traore never promised a paradise. He began with the most basic rights: the right to be clean, to be safe, and to be healthy in your own village. August 4th, Stadium, where memory and ambition rise again. Located in the capital Ouagadougou, August 4th. Stadium is more than just a football arena. It is a witness to history. It bears the name of 4th of August, 1983, the day Thomas Sankara led a revolution that changed the destiny of Burkina Faso. But over time, the stadium fell into disrepair, cold, neglected, and slowly forgotten, until the president decided to completely renovate it, transforming it into a living symbol of rebirth. With a capacity of 35,000 seats, the stadium now boasts an international standard pitch, new lighting systems, digital scoreboards, VIP areas, and modern locker rooms. But more than anything, security, accessibility, and spectator experience were made top priorities. During festivals or major matches, tens of thousands gather on the same terrace, cheering, crying, singing the national anthem. August 4 is no longer just a stadium. It is the cultural heart, the beating pulse of a nation rising from the ashes. Gold no longer flows out, nationalized and refined on home soil. Burkina Faso is one of Africa's leading gold producers, but for years, gold flowed outward. The people saw dust, while value vanished. President Traoré ended that. Since 2023, two major gold mines, Bongo and Guadionan, were nationalized. The state mining company Soeur de Faso was established. New extraction agreements were signed directly with the Russian firm, not Nordgon. The Russian embassy reopened after 31 years, while the French military was fully expelled. The cornerstone of this strategy, the construction of the country's first gold refinery, in partnership with Marinag. With an annual capacity of 150 tons, it has already created more than 5,000 indirect jobs. Now, gold is not just retained, it is shaped by BKFO's own hands. It becomes a living symbol of sovereignty, resilience, and national pride. 2 university hospitals and mobile clinics, bringing healthcare to every doorstep. In the past, to get a CT scan or specialized care, many Burkina Faso citizens had to travel abroad. That is changing. The government is building 2 major university hospitals, one in Bala, 500 beds, in partnership with China, one in Gawa, 300 beds, serving the southwest region and neighboring countries like Ghana. At the same time, 15 mobile clinics are being deployed, equipped with ultrasound, endoscopy, and solar-powered refrigeration units, reaching even the most remote areas. In addition, the government has constructed 55 community health centers and 5 intensive care units, ensuring that wherever you live, you are not left out of the national health system. For Traore, a hospital is not just a building, it is a way to restore trust and the right to be cared for. 25 projects, not miracles, not perfect blueprints, but every road, every factory, every classroom, every drop of clean water speaks one truth. Burkina Faso has started over, with its own hands. In a world where small nations are often forced to pick sides, bow their heads, or remain silent, Ibrahim and his people have chosen another path. To stand tall, to decide for themselves, and to commit. What they are building isn't just development, it is a powerful model of self-reliance, dignity, and sovereignty. No one knows how far this journey will go, but as of today, Burkina Faso has proven that even the places once called hopeless.
If you're inspired by Burkina Faso's story of self-reliance and innovation, help share this vision with the world. Like, share, and subscribe to amplify the voices of African leaders who are proving that Africa doesn't need the World Bank, IMF, Europe, or America, uadata.com. Because the future can be built by and for Africans. Join this movement of hope and support by spreading the word. Together, we can empower Africa's next generation of creators, entrepreneurs, and changemakers. Together, let's help prove that Africa's future is written by its own people.